Oh, come on. You son of a
Hello
bitch.
and welcome to
Hello.
an evening with comrades. Tonight with us we have Theo,
Vladimir Sakmiov. No.
What?
we have Senna,
Hi.
we have Dipdap,
Yeah.
Crypto,
Fisker Mama Karachin.
and Positive
Fist my mama
Pac-Man.
what now?
Hiroshima was Praxis.
Been
Started.
I
7
know!
seconds.
Starting off with the
Peter.
hot takes.
Jesus.
Starting off with a bang.
God.
A big bang.
Crypto.
Now it's white phosphorus.
Okay,
There's children
what
in
I have to
Vietnam.
say
God.
to you,
Speaking-
Crypto, I will just
speaking
DM
about-
to you.
Speaking about time bombs,
Ugh.
if you
Oh,
haven't,
God, that segue.
if you aren't caught up with the recent history of Australian politics, we have a little clause in the Constitution called Section 44. Now, there was a big constitutional crisis in that there were dual citizens in Parliament, which is not allowed. That resulted in a few politicians having to resign, and then by-elections for their electorate had to go through. Lots of people got cancelled from Parliament, if that's the terminology. What's happening
No, it
now,
isn't.
though, is that I think it's a university has released a paper which shows a different section of Section 44, shows that anybody who has foreign entitlements is also ineligible for Parliament. So a lot of politicians have British parents, and and because of that, they have residency, or I forget the other word for it. It's essentially they can live in Britain, like in England or Scotland or Wales, which means they have privileges from a foreign power. And that means around, I think the numbers are like 15 to 26 politicians might be ineligible for Parliament.
I think I'd like to point out right now that precludes my running for office. Therefore, I guess I'm going to have to take Canberra by force. I was going to do that anyway. But
Megatons of force.
Megatons of force. But in all seriousness, what I fucking love about that is if you take this section to its inevitable conclusion, accepting the maybe 2 Indigenous members of Parliament, literally everybody else is going to have to resign. Everybody.
Pretty much.
I mean, not really, considering that a sizable chunk of the Australian population are the descendants of Irish and Scottish prisoners and Welsh prisoners that had their property confiscated by the Anglos.
Oh, actually, that's a good point, because they back in the old days they lost their rights to citizenship and property and stuff. So technically, yeah, you're right.
I think a question I'll pose to you guys is
The Ned Kelly Act.
if we're gonna say pick the battle of trying to resist or do sort of a civil disobedience against parliamentary bourgeois politics, could we deplatform politicians by trying to use, Section 44 or other constitutional clauses in other countries to try to, finger quotes, fight back against bourgeois politics?
I think that's a bit too vague. Can you clarify what exactly you mean? Like, give an example, because what you're talking about is a bit.
Well, say Senator Fraser Anning in Australia, dickhead of a man. Especially he was the I don't want to use the victim word, but he was the target of the egging, that famous egging in Egg Boy.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah. So instead of waiting, say 3 years to try to vote him out, should we try to find some kind of legal clause in the Constitution to get him out, or should we instead, even attempt that, or should we focus on other organizational things? Is it
The
even
Wall sounds good.
like is
It's
it
kind of
mean-
like those. You go first.
now, is
Uh,
it worth
No, I
trying
mean
to
Stella. I mean Stella.
deplatform politicians?
I mean, here's the thing with me is like, is it really a dichotomy? I mean, we have, more than just one or two people working on stuff like this. Who's to say some people can't be like, hey, let's take the approach of trying to, get him thrown out on legal grounds. And, other people can do other things. Like, I don't think it's a bad idea to attempt something like that if, you've got something good on him. I'm not sure it'd work, but,
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good
I think
point
ventured nothing gained.
because you can just
Yeah.
do something like say write an email to the say Department of Justice, which takes up like 5 minutes, really.
Yeah, though I think we could probably I think another example we could use for like in the case of the US is the people trying to get Donald Trump impeached. If
Ah.
that is yeah, it might sound good, but the thing is you bring down one bad person, they find someone even worse to replace him.
Oh
In
no, Joe
America's case,
Biden.
Mike Pence. Like I think
Honestly, sorry.
I think it's it is. I mean, I really don't think we should be working within the system to remove these people from office when there's a chance that you're not really changing anything. You're just shifting people about.
What's the problem with the American law specifically is that the government is not really seen as a separate entity from the legislature. Like over here in Austria, the government is the ministers and the chancellor, and then there's the parliament, which is seen as a separate body. But the thing is, usually if one of them gets implicated, one of the ministers, a lot of people have to resign. But um, I think the approach that fucking uh that journalist took in Austria, if all, any of you are familiar with the Ibiza video,
Yeah.
yeah, um, like where they tricked the you know leader of the far right party in Austria to drop the mask and show the absolute corruption that he's under. And the thing is, the reason it did something isn't because it, like the liberals think, it exposed hypocrisy or something. No, it provided solid proof that was published publicly and then sent to the fucking Ministry of Justice. Literal proof that that guy broke the law under an impeachable offense and would have to resign. It's not about embarrassing them. What it should be about is, because I don't know how feasible that would be in the US. Because it would be much easier in France, Germany, Austria, where the government is a cohesive entity. It's not just the leader.
Yeah,
All its ministers are a big part of that.
it seems like in the US, if you point at, say, Trump or the government or the Supreme Court and say, "Look, the emperor has no clothes," people will just say, "Yeah, we know," and then not do anything.
Also, the thing is, in the US, people are always seen as their individual faults, if you know what I mean. Impeach, say, the Secretary of Defense in America. Just the Secretary of Defense is gonna resign. If you that happens in, like, say, Central Europe, Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, say, you'd have in Austria case, for example, you'd have to have a fucking hearing with them. he would have to resign, but then it would have to be determined, are other ministers implicated? If they are even,
There's actually a
suspected
due process
accomplices,
to it.
if they are even suspected accomplices, which their colleagues, they all are, it tends to lead to a lot more resignations. Usually not the chancellor. Actually, this was quite historic what happened, because the for the first time in the history of the Second Republic, since 1945, formally since 55, but since 1945. Actually, I think in the history of Austrian democracy in general, a vote of no confidence against the chancellor passed the parliament, and the entire government was ousted after all the far right ministers had already resigned, which was huge.
I mean, like, I think when it comes to using the means of the state as a means to remove people from office, it really depends on where you're going to go with it. Like, I haven't done that much reading on what's going on in Australia right now. You said it was people who do not have complete Australian background are ineligible for office.
If they have a dual citizenship,
Or the right to inherit any foreign property.
privileges, I believe it says. So they don't.
Yeah, that's what that
So
encompasses.
they don't actually have any property in England, but because they have the privilege to have property there, then they have privileges under a foreign power, and then they're ineligible.
Well,
Which
the thing I would like to say about that is, judging by how many people in Australia are originally from the British Isles, judging by how many people in Australia are from the British Isles, just how much of the government is that going to render ineligible for office? Like, I mean, could you actually have anyone eligible to run for office in that case?
Well, as Pac-Man said, if you take Section 44 to its logical conclusion, it's like, about out of the 151 seats, there's probably only going to be 10 left, and the 10 that are left are actually Aboriginal Australians.
I mean-
Irishmen and,
I mean, right. This is honestly, this is very interesting. I mean, I am completely in favor of having people like Fraser Anning and the fucking scabs that are in the Australian Labor Party, and just
Yeah.
from to my knowledge, I haven't heard of a single Australian political party that is not completely dogged by conservatism, corruption, or spineless opportunism, such as the Australian Labor Party.
Incompetence.
General incompetence,
who's
exactly.
That fucking guy. Who's that fucking guy? Who's like, are you racist? We're Australians. That answers your question. Who is that
Bob
guy?
Katter of Katter's Australian Party.
But he got really mad that somebody told him that his grandfather or something was, not Australian.
Yeah, someone said, "Oh, what about your grandfather who was from Lebanon? He's Lebanese." He got really mad, like, "No, he was Australian. That's what he was." Like, now that you bring that up, I think Bob was probably just scared that someone might quote Section 44 at him because he might have privileges under a foreign power now.
Yeah,
I mean-
the problem... Not even problem. I don't really get the debate of do you use it, do you not use it, because it implies a dichotomy that I don't see to be there. Just do whatever.
I'm so sorry about that. Someone came in to talk to me.
I have a real
That's
problem with it in a lot of ways, and the reason I do is to use the woke book form. I'm really concerned about the optics of it.
Okay, to quote
Yeah.
Lenin, to paraphrase Lenin, fuck the optics if the Tsar dies.
I mean, that
yeah.
is that. I
Could
mean,
you
that
ele-
is true, but you're not. It's not as though you're going to get Fraser Anning lined up
No,
against the wall
of course,
by like getting
not
him handed
Fraser
out of
Anning.
Parliament.
could you
What I
elaborate,
meant by
Pac-Man?
that, what I meant
Okay.
by that is, if it destabilizes the government, it in turn destabilizes the state, which necessitates
Yeah.
which creates the breeding ground in which you can use to organize further class action, which you should do no matter where it goes.
Hmm.
You know,
I mean,
Look,
Pac-Man,
you
could
should
you elaborate on your
organize.
optics?
Yeah.
Eventually. What I meant by that is the same reason I have a problem with impeaching Trump is I don't want to sound like too much of a milquetoast liberal on this, but I feel like doing that gives them way too much credit, and it opens up the argument that, oh, he was only removed because you gamed the system. I mean, I'm all for pragmatic socialism. In fact, I'm one of its biggest advocates. Look, if we could take Fraser Anning out and have him forcefully relocated, Eastern Marshland does not support violence. If we could have him taken out and forcefully relocated because Eastern Marshland doesn't endorse violence, I would not be opposed. In fact, I would welcome it 100%. And at the same time, however, not wanting to play into the libertarian gang's hands, it would, if we did that sort of thing, unless we had real solid 100% concrete cast iron legitimacy for doing it, such as with Nixon in Watergate, for example. Maybe not the best example, but you get what I mean. I don't think it would be a good move purely because relying on the state to fix a problem inherently caused by it doesn't look good, and more importantly, I doubt its effectiveness. I don't think it would work really. I don't think
I
you
think
could
you should
actually
do it
get.
anonymously.
Well, even then, if you get Fraser Anning knocked out of Parliament or Senate, which granted we probably could have done.
Well, but we did. He's out.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what I mean. Look, it's fucking 8:30 in the morning where I am. Leave me alone. But like, it's just I don't like if we get Trump impeached, for example. What we're gonna get is we're gonna get Mike
Mike
Pence.
Pence.
We're gonna get some
Oh.
other establishment Republican. It's
Agreed.
like it's the Hydra. We cut one really bad head off, two more just as bad or possibly worse heads take their place.
Exactly.
It's not even a
Yeah,
Of course,
case of
it's a
that.
situational thing.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right.
So,
Do you guys
What were
you saying,
remember
Sarah?
when?
Never
So-
mind.
Let the Yank talk.
Yeah, like my take on it is that obviously it's very situational. In the US, I don't think it's that great of an idea unless, it's not a hard thing to do to get something rolling, which depending on the situation is possible. I mean, if it doesn't take you much effort, fuck it, why not? But like at the very least, especially if there's a very good case presented for, hey, this person fucking sucks and they broke the law and did a bunch of other dumb shit. And then they're just like, oh, we don't care. And it just gets kind of thrown out. That way, you have documentation of, hey, our government does not give a shit about this kind of thing. There is no integrity. It does not care about anything but its own self-preservation, and it is not our friend.
Yeah.
And that's
Another
a
thing-
good thing you can use to pull in liberals because that's tangible proof that something's wrong.
I think that not caring kind of just to dunk on the liberals again. That not caring sort of kicks in when they get a slight victory and then think it's over. Do you guys remember Steve Bannon when he was fired from the Oval Office for whatever job title he had? Lots of people were celebrating. It's like, yes, he's out. He's gone forever. This is a major victory for us. It's like, no, you've won the battle. Immediately after Steve Bannon cut his last paycheck, he used it to then start helping other alt-right movements around the world.
Exactly.
His work...
He also likes Nick Land. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, another big thing about this, where I would differentiate between the US and, say, Australia, Britain, Germany, is because The other four are parliamentary democracies. The United States is not. The United States is centered on the upper house, Senate, that is, and the president. It is all centered around. I forget who it was. It was an American anarchist that said that the US basically just elects a king, which they do, really.
Like a feudalist oligarchy.
Sort of, but the problem is, and this is, I have a really hard time explaining this to like liberal Yanks. When I say no man should hold that much power, it's like, but you have a government, and it's like, yeah, but all that power is delegated, and they literally just fight each other all the time.
What you gonna do with all that power?
Like, Austria specifically has the president as an overseer, directly elected, and then you have the government, who is entirely separate. President has the power to oversee the government, has the power to brain fart. Opposite of make the government go poof. Impeach
Dissolve.
them.
Reinforce.
Dissolve. Thank you.
Dissolve
Dissolve the parliament. Well, he could dissolve the parliament. He just it's a bit extreme. But like all of that power isn't just concentrated into this one person that is kind of elected. Not really.
It's over many decades. The different power structures of the U.S. government has shifted. It's just undemocratized itself. And one specific little example of the larger problem is that senators and representatives don't have to filibuster anymore. They'll just threaten to. They'll send out a memo. It's like, oh, I'm gonna filibuster this bill. It's like, oh well, I don't want to be asked actually having to listen to them filibuster, so I'll just cave in and we'll renegotiate the bill. Like what? No.
It's atrophy. It is bureaucratic and legislative atrophy. Because the problem is, and this is going to be a big kicker, the US isn't actually a republic.
No, it is not.
It's basically a feudal confederacy of different, like, cues and name, United States. Like, individual states might have laws that are pretty democratic, pretty normal, you know. Say New York, for example, has pretty good labor laws. But the federal fucking law is basically shite.
Yeah.
And it almost has no real power, really.
It's not supposed to.
States can technically overrule pretty much anything unless it's like real hardcore shit. There's no standard.
Yeah,
like, if you don't pay your tax, the IRS suddenly has a lot of power.
Like cannabis legislation, for example, in the US, federally it is still outlawed, but lots of states, including California, Oregon, Colorado, they've completely legalized it for recreational and medical use.
Well, that's health laws. Health laws are usually on like regional level in most places.
But
Britain and Germany.
Yeah, though I'm still saying it's an example of where state law kind of overrides federal law.
Well, that's not really the problem. I don't really have as much of a problem with that. What I have a problem with is that it's like the European Union. And that's actually a very succinct example. It's a more centralized European Union, to make an allegory. Utterly undemocratic. This is funny, like saying from a bunch of German comedians. If the European Union were a state that wanted to join the European Union, it would be denied entry for lack of democratic basis. It's kind of the same thing, because in the US, just what is elected doesn't matter. What is elected is decided by the climate. What's actually done is decided by the climate in, like the presidency. It's a complacency. It's basically the new world's Holy Roman Empire, if you think about it.
So is what's true and what we've said in the US true of other places? Or is it in other places it's actually possible to try to use the system against itself?
Well, difference is, where do you have such massive population over such a massive area with such a shitty form of organization? The thing is, Austria's system is utterly undemocratic and it sucks, but we're just 8 million people. Things can change pretty quickly if you're just dealing with, like, 6 million votes, more realistically about 4 million.
Versus the population of, like, fucking 324 million on the size of half a continent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh
Ridiculous.
yeah, 327 million actually.
27. Good God.
Damn.
We need a
Yeah.
lot.
Fucking immigrants taking our
Yeah.
jobs that we don't have.
There
Yeah,
are
and that's sort of the problem. Like, the thing about Britain, Germany, Austria, is that we have a lot smaller population on a lot smaller area. And
Yeah.
that makes it easier to influence politics, because that threshold of things you have to get, the percentage that you have to get to change things, is divided over a lot less people than in the US.
Yeah,
Like,
meanwhile, in the US, everyone is very spread out. There's a metric shit ton of people, and every single area of the US, like every fucking state just about has like a drastically different culture in at least some respects.
And different
Yeah.
commodity prices and tax rates and shit. Like you don't
There
have a
is
standard-
nothing that unites us other than the technicality of the federal government's
It's
existence.
the military.
Football.
And my freedom.
Pretty much.
My freedom.
Ready for some football.
Who was it that said that?
Who said my
Um,
freedom?
No, someone. I think it was actually a social democrat, now that I think about it,
Ew.
that said that the United States is basically just held together by an military occupation that has lasted since 1776.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Critical
but this,
support for the Confederacy against Yankee imperialism.
Okay,
critical support for slavery, Pac-Man. All right, okay, I see.
Also,
No, it's a joke
Good
upon
time,
what Theo,
Pac-Man.
it's a joke upon what Theo said, because that lends credence to the Confederates' argument. It's a
not
military
really, because the
occupation by the North.
Confederate Constitution was basically identical to the U.S. Constitution. So it's like, it's kind of like, let's compare these two states with one another. Russia and Russia in 2 seconds.
Okay.
I think,
I
like,
think
I was gonna say,
go
coming back to the whole thing about Australia and all that, and the this new law on the I forget. It's like, and I'm putting on my moon-ringed spectacles here. It sounds good in theory. How's it going to work in practice?
Okay, look. All right.
No, why is the creation kit opening? No, go away. No, please. Oh god. Oh fuck. No, get out. Shoo. I don't want
fuck.
you.
Senna's
Spaghetti's
trying to mod
falling out of her
Skyrim while
pockets.
streaming. She's doing it. She's doing it big style.
It
Todd Howard,
accidentally
you've done
opened
it
an
again.
ESP file. Fuck you.
Todd Howard even manages to ruin our stream as well. He truly
It
is an
just
omnipotent force.
works.
Listen,
Oh,
I do not
God.
condone violence. EML does not condone violence, but I will rip Todd Howard's head off and shove it up his ass.
EML doesn't condone violence, but I do.
God.
Jesus Christ.
All right, we've got
Hey, you know how you were wondering how long it would take to get us demonetized? Well, there you go.
There we go.
It's right there.
Speaking
Hello.
of
As if we ever had a chance.
No, but may I
we
try
should,
and answer the question that was
Uh,
posed?
I mean, I can try. Looking
Go
at
ahead.
it, looking at what I say about Australia, I want to give a brief little anecdote regarding what I work at. For those of you who have visited the stream before, you know I work at a call center for one of Australia's leading telecommunications providers. And in doing so, I have access to the widest demographic of conversation that you could possibly. I speak to literally every single demographic in Australia.
Mhm.
Every single one. And one thing that is universal, unless you're talking to Dazza from fucking regional Queensland with these fucking brown people ruining my life.
Okay.
Unless you're talking to him, the majority of my customers are all either center, like sort of center, sort of libertarian kind of, you know, sort of middle ground sort of voters, or center left to moderate left. Unless you're talking to like the rednecks from fucking Queensland, and like who are like 500 miles out of town, unless you're talking to them, pretty much all of Australia's people that I've spoken to are pro union, pro national healthcare, pro all this, pro, and all of them to a man and woman united feel alienated by our current government, and not just our current government, but entirely. I don't. The Australian system is so broken that our political representation, like the actual views of the Australian people, and under bourgeois capitalism, this isn't a surprise. But at least in America, as corrupt or stupid as it is, there is at least some politicians, however useless that they are, that sort of represent at least some demographic. In Australia, almost none of the actual political views of the population are represented at all.
Yeah.
It
This is a
reminds
huge
me. It
problem.
reminds me of that joke from that old Flash animation where it's like, oh, hey guys, it looks like the government's fucked. Righto. That's it.
Yeah, this is a
I am now
problem
taking-
as well to a lesser degree, because the government is proposing to raise the workday from 8 hours to 12 hours. They will tell you that they're not, but they are.
Right.
And
He
who's
nods
opposing
in
this?
silence.
Well, one party is opposing this. That's the Greens. The Greens are like, that's just stupid. Actually, no. To be fair, after the Soc Dems solved their internal leadership crisis, they got up their asses and were like lowering the like raising the workday. Fuck you. We should lower the workday to give them credit where credit is due. But
All right. Perhaps we've said all we can
Yeah.
about
Well,
Section
one thing,
44.
What
Yeah.
do you expect from bourgeois democracy other than like all of this?
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
I
That's exactly
concur.
my point.
Bourgeois
You can't
democracy
really
is a
expect
fuck.
anything, and I don't think any. To quote Rosa, it's reform or revolution, and let's be honest, revolution's the only real answer.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Get fucked, neo-Kautskytes.
my suggestion is organize, agitate, radicalize.
Yeah, I think that's pretty succinct. All right. Shall
Yeah.
we move on?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Let's flip a coin. Which one are we gonna go first?
Well, I think Dipdat wanted to. We should talk about the situation in Hong Kong. Just before
enlighten
we
us,
do.
Dip-Dab.
Yeah, just before we do, I want to remind everyone to like and subscribe, and we have a donation link in the description. And if you donate, you get your name in the bottom left-hand corner. Here's a test one. Comrade John donated $70. Jesus Christ, $70. Settle down, Streamlabs. Yeah, so if you give us even $1, that goes towards SoundCloud and storage, and it really helps us be able to do
Keep this
Evening
show
with
running.
Comrades and get it and other Radio Silence podcast and everything EML out to you guys. Please don't not be able to pay a bill by giving us money. Take care of yourself first, and then if you want to, and if you can spare it, maybe give us $1. We appreciate
Yeah, if you find
we appreciate all the support that you guys give us, so that we can give back to you.
give us the sorry.
Sorry. I'm trying to shitpost over your shitpost. It's not quite working.
Give
So
us the dollar that you find in your toilet.
so Dip Dap, could you get us updated on the situation in Hong Kong?
So I know I've been talking about it for a few weeks now. That like the Hong Kong government introduced this bill would allow extradition of suspects of I think any crime to Beijing or to mainland China in general, and that would allow them to try them there. I hope we all recognize that sending somebody who's a suspect of anything to Beijing is a bad idea, and they will not come back.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a death sentence.
So it's any crime. I thought it was I read somewhere that it was about a Hong Kong millionaire or something, and he was under suspicion
That's what the
of
Chinese
fraud.
government reported.
It
That's
was
like
about this,
literally
but the
yeah.
law was introduced to be more strict. Now, the general manager of Hong Kong, Carrie, her name's Carrie Lam, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has come out to say that they could not amend it, and they could not amend it so as to appease the people. So because of this, the bill is effectively dead in the water, and she has no intention of restarting the process to have it passed. But people in Hong Kong aren't giving up because now they want her to resign.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the
think
protests
it-
are continuing.
Remember, guys, without the Communist Party, there would be no new workers for the dams project in Western China.
Remember,
I think
without
like
the Communist Party, there would be no iPhone S4 or whatever.
I have
S4, wow.
I have something interesting to contribute to this. Something that was pretty. It was shown a lot in British news when the protests were going on. When the protesters stormed the Hong Kong Parliament, they apparently draped the old Hong Kong flag that featured the Union Jack on it.
Yeah, they raised the
Now,
Union Jack.
Dip Dap, just how representative, because you are the expert here, just how representative of that, just how representative is that of the opinions of the majority of the protesters?
I can't tell exactly for that. They may have just been using it as a ploy to be like, we want the old way back in general.
Yeah.
But people in Hong Kong do not identify as Chinese. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They identify as Hong Kongers. They do. They're not. Most of them don't identify as English or fuck any of that shit. Especially most people in the protest weren't alive when the English were still in control of Hong Kong, because apparently there have been protesters as young as 13 in the streets rioting.
Lads, I wish I was that woke at that. I wish I was as woke at that age.
The youngest people are 13. I know one guy died last week.
Oh shit.
But the people of Hong Kong just today, over 150 tear gas canisters were thrown at protesters, and the government is just begging people to come to the table.
Yeah, like
I actually remember. It's really not working.
No, it is not. I
Um,
actually remember watching a news report, I think it was on BBC, that interviewed this like 70, 75-year-old woman who was saying, I want Hong Kong to be a colony of Britain again.
Would you rather have a neoliberal or a bureaucratic, like, state capitalist state, though?
Fuck that! I'd rather have revolution.
I would too. I would too. We all would. But holy shit, Xi Jinping is scary.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, even though being
I
an
would
Anglo,
like to point
the
out
anti-Anglo gang runs strong.
I know. I would like to point out at this point that that is not what the people of Hong Kong will associate with that. That's what you have to keep in mind. It's what if you were talking about basic psychology here, what they associate the British with in this state, it is they are the representation of not the PRC. That's the sort of dichotomy that is created.
Xi's government is literally just the ungloved fist of like bourgeois society.
Ungloved, lubed fist.
Oh yeah, no, it's not lubed. It's not
Fist
lubed.
me harder, Xi Jinping.
It is a modernized T-70.
73 people, including police, as young as 15, were treated at a hospital today. 150 tear gas canisters, a lot of rubber bullets, and 20 beanbag shots were fired today alone.
Wow.
The riots began around by 3 p.m. it had started, and there were clashes with police by 4:30.
So keeping that in mind for this question from OnlyBro555, he asks, how has Macau reacted to the Hong Kong protests?
To be honest, I know fuck all about Macau. I don't even think people in Macau know anything about Macau. They're fucking useless, like Las Vegas dumbasses. I don't know anything about them.
Well, you've now pissed off the entire Macau-centered fan base of Eastern Marshlands. I hope you're happy with yourself.
Outrage.
Macau is basically just Las Vegas, and they have a population about the size of Alaska. I'm not afraid of them.
Like, isn't Macau the part of China that has a ton of casinos and shit?
Yeah, they are literally the Las Vegas of Asia.
And they're the former Portuguese colony.
Yeah, what do you expect of the descendants of the Portuguese? They're useless.
People pretending to be Spain.
Is this extradition bill, was this just a way to test the waters for reabsorbing Hong Kong into China?
Honestly, I'd say probably, yeah. And they're not taking it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because Red Mushroom states in the chat, Hong Kong just won't escape its reabsorption into China. This is bound to end violently. Would you agree with that statement?
Listen. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen.
Oh, look, I'm sorry, but I'm getting ready for this. Let me put it this way: we've got a state capitalist authoritarian, bound on creating special economic zones and absorbing the old territories back into the Chinese Republic. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Khrushchev 2 thermonuclear boogaloo, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to get tanks.
Hong Kong is at a crossroads, and this crossroads is Hong Kong standing in the middle of the street with 2 grocery bags and some tanks.
Oh yes, that event that never happened.
That never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened. It will not happen again. I swear it won't happen again, because the Chinese government is really not calling these people like violent terrorists.
Yeah, absolutely not.
We are stabilizing the situation.
The Hong Kong government has said it's blatant and organized rioting, and the Beijing mouthpiece, People's Daily, said, quote, colluding with foreign anti-Chinese forces to manufacture social conflicts, end quote.
We are stabilizing the region.
Where have I heard that before? Ist eine kleine Wurzel der internationale Clique.
I don't think they're talking about the Jews, because I don't think most of them knows what the Jews are, but...
Yeah, there's only about 1,000 Jews in China, so and they are technically illegal to practice Judaism in China, because it's not a recognized religion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
they're talking about the Yanks and the Anglos.
How is
So,
how is
Hmm?
the international response to Hong Kong? Because I haven't seen
people
any
support it. People support them.
people, but
Um,
what about governments? I haven't seen Donald Trump come on the news and be like, "We're gonna support Hong Kong."
he's trying to buddy up with Xi.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so
The UK.
silent.
I touched on the Jews for a second. There's a thing in China called Kaifeng Jews. They are a small, very, very tiny ethnic group. 1,000 people. Only 50 of them are actually practicing Jews, and China has recognized religions of Taoism, Buddhism, Islam, Protestantism, and Catholicism. Right. Thereby,
Yeah.
these 50 or so practicing Jews of the Henan province are doing so illegally.
Yeah.
Which is why synagogues were demolished recently.
Ah.
Wait, hang on. You mean to what?
A synagogue was demolished last year.
I'm just sort of looking at that, going like, have we reached? Because like, the only thing I can think of, unless there's some undercurrent in Chinese culture that I'm not aware of, but like gigantic amounts of anti-Semitism is mainly a European thing.
20% of Chinese people hold anti-Semitic beliefs.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, Chinese are very racist.
Well, the Chinese are
I'm
racist,
not,
but I always thought
I'm
that
not,
was against everyone.
I'm not gonna say the Chinese words for these, but there's a lot of words in Chinese that if you directly translate them are very racist. The equivalent of the N word in Chinese would be I'm not gonna say the actual word, but I'm gonna say the translation of it. Black devil.
Ooh.
I think that's
There's
close enough for demonetization.
now I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to use the word for cracker though, which is baiguizi, which means a white demon.
I
I think
mean,
my
that's
friend-
acceptable.
I mean, I think my
Absolutely.
friend,
Fuck white
my friend who lived in Xinjiang for like 10 years, actually told me that she'd been called that like several times.
Wait, Xinjiang?
Yeah, she lived in Xinjiang for 10 years in
Oh, shit.
Urumqi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's been about 10 years as of last week since the big thing in Xinjiang.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I have a friend who I used to work with who taught English in Xinjiang.
Yeah.
A note. It is illegal to use English, or not English, but Uyghur in Xinjiang schools now.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, even though Islam is recognized as being one of China's official religions, I think it gets much more harsh treatment than, say, Christianity.
It gets a harsh treatment if you're not Han.
Yeah.
This is a very important thing. Okay,
Yeah,
they
it's an
do
ethnic
not
thing.
care about what religion someone is. They care about the ethnicity because they're assimilationists to the Han ethnicity. There are 54, I want to say, recognized ethnicities in China. The 54 of them recognized is a 92% Han, right?
Yeah.
This is weird because not 92% of Chinese what I think identify as Han.
Okay.
There's smaller ethnicities. It's just like there's Mongolian, but there's like other ethnicities that's not just Mongolian. There's like the different banners.
What were you gonna say, Pac-Man?
I was gonna
Same with the Manchu.
I was gonna say one interesting thing talking about race and stuff and Asian cultures and their sort of, well, I suppose outlook. You know, Japan people sort of tend to forget in our Eurocentric, Americocentric world that like the social and the socioeconomic status of minority groups and their oppression is not a uniquely Western thing. Like China, from my experience, China and Japan are two of the most racist societies in the entire world.
Oh yeah.
They are
How do I
fucking
put this?
terrifying.
Wherever you get centralized authorities, you're gonna get oppressed minorities. This starts from
Okay. If you ever want to read about like the genesis of Han nationalism, anything on the Boxer Rebellion is good, and somebody in a comment recently told me that the Boxer Rebellion was good. The Boxer Rebellion was ethnically charged and only for the Han against all foreigners, including the Manchu, which are
Yeah.
indigenous.
yeah, and
Um,
considering that it was ultimately imperial powers coming in to beat up on basically ethno-nationalist, proto-ethno-nationalist, I should say, um, rebellion. It was basically a turd beating up another turd, and
Yeah.
then you're put there and asked who
Um,
to root for.
Dip Dap.
Yeah.
If these protests in Hong Kong have an element of Hong Kong identity to them, do you think that these protests may morph into, say, dare I say the phrase identity movement or identitarian movement?
Oh boy.
And would it then develop
Hong
into
Kong-
Hong Kong wanting
Hong-
complete freedom away
Hong-
from China?
I wouldn't say an identity movement, but they most definitely don't want to be a part of China. Hong Kong is pretty ethnically diverse to my understanding.
Cosmopolitan.
Oh yeah.
I mean, from what I would see, I think the biggest concerns about Hong Kong is how much of it, like their GDP per square inch of land is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Hong Kong is just such an economic powerhouse. It's sort of like a giant power conduit with all the foreign trade and foreign investment going through it. It's a massive asset for the Chinese, and I don't think, as Dip Dap quite rightly says, if we see any strong leanings towards this identitarian or even, dare we say, nationalist movement, we're going to see something where nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. Yeah,
Wait a minute.
nothing.
Wait a minute, guys. I think I've cracked the code. Nothing means something will happen.
No,
Okay.
nothing will happen.
Okay, no. In Hong Kong, 92% are of a Chinese ethnicity. Any of the 54, I believe. Because it's not listed as Han, it's listed as Chinese. So that could be Miao, Yue, Mandarin class, like it could be Han, anything. It could be Uyghurs even. Because the next ethnicity down would be Filipinos, Indonesians, and then broad white. About 0.8% of it is white, and in fact, in the last 10 years, the white population of Hong Kong has grown by almost double.
Well, I mean, my cousin Daisy can't run for office in Australia for the same reason as she was technically born in Hong Kong. So I don't know what is the citizenship status of Hong Kong actually. Come to think of it, how do you become a citizen of Hong Kong?
I think you have to be of China because they are a special economic zone of the PRC.
And if you're born in Hong Kong, does that make you a Chinese citizen?
Possibly. I don't know that part. I just know that Hong Kong people identify as, I believe, Hong Kongers.
Do you think if the protests continue, will we start to see more I guess liberals supporting it because they're breaking away from the evil China Empire, Would we start to see more of that international support for them? You know, the filthy liberals not getting it.
I don't
Well,
know
it
because they're violent.
depends. It also depends how much do people want to get in, for lack of a better term, how deep do people want to be in G's ass?
Jesus.
All the way up to the elbow.
What I mean is like people might not support them as much. People do support them right now, but they are moderately violent. They're
Yeah,
rioting.
I still
And
think
especially American liberals do not like that.
Yeah.
I think they have a double standard. I think it's about they don't see it, so they don't care. They don't see the violence.
American are very much, at least in my experience, they
Out of
very
sight,
much
out of
seem to be the attitude. Yeah, there's a lot of, oh well, you know, it's not happening over here, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'd give as much of a shit about it as they would if it was happening.
Yeah,
Like, what they're gonna end up doing is they're just gonna turn their fucking profile picture to like have a red thing like they did with Sudan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
what's gonna happen media-wise will depend from country to country, and it will depend on how close of an economic relationship they want to have
Yeah.
with the PRC.
In,
For example,
in Australia,
if
there's
some-
literally no coverage at all.
yeah, for example, there was something that because I remember a couple of days ago when I was on my couple of days break, there was something on, I believe it was BBC's Daily Politics show where they had in the Chinese ambassador to the UK, and they were like really hammering. They were really like they were because there was a big diplomatic spat between the PRC and the UK over this, and like all of a sudden, apparently, the British government gives a shit about what's been happening to the Uyghur population in Xinjiang as well.
hey,
Suddenly.
only we get to murder Muslims off our shores, you know.
Only we get to oppress minorities. You can't do
Uh,
it.
You're not white. Why are you
Mom
doing
said
that?
it's my turn to oppress the minorities.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are you a
Sorry.
gamer now, Senna?
Honestly, what
I've been
Sana just said
modding
is
Skyrim while doing this. What do you fucking?
Jesus Christ.
honestly, Sana,
Okay,
what
so,
you
I
so
hate
an Australian to answer only row in the chat, an Australian state MP has drawn similarities between the Hong Kong protests and China's persecution of Falun Gong. But okay, I'm gonna say this right now. Okay. Falun Gong are a cult. This is true, but they do not deserve to have their organs harvested.
Right.
Okay, I don't think I'm actually very familiar with this. Excuse me, what?
Falun Gong are like, okay, you know, like anti-vaxxers and like.
Okay, yeah.
homeopath-
You've mentioned that. I think you lost me with the harvesting of organs part.
Oh my god, it's a
Oh,
cult of Karens.
Okay, they're like that, but a cult, and they have religious backing for it. There's some evidence to say that the Chinese government is taking their organs, consent when they die.
Oh, that's creepy.
I mean,
Is Black Mirror on this shit? I mean, I think there needs to be an episode about this. Maybe get the liberals to listen.
there's already been a book written about it by a Japanese author called Kazuro Ishiguro called Never Let Me Go. Great book. You should read it.
I'm gonna tell you.
Wait. Beijing has denied, saying that it has stopped using organs from executed prisoners as of 2015. But yeah.
It has stopped using, which means they were prior.
Okay, well, stop harvesting organs. You people are no fun.
Westerners and your
That's about what you said,
non-organ
Crypto.
harvesting.
I'm gonna tell you right now that
Okay, the Dingists are gonna get mad in the comments again, so I'm going to ask for that sweet like button because the Dingists will be mad again, like last week.
I say let them cry.
You're not socialists, you're hacks.
No, let him cry. Let him cry. Let him fucking be piss babies in the comments.
Come to my house and fight me.
But I'm going to press the viewers for that sweet like button for that ratio.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Hit that
suggest
motherfucking like button if
everyone.
you hate Dinguists.
I'm gonna suggest everyone calms down a little because we're having a lot of interruptions when people are trying to talk.
Well, yeah, but
So
here's the thing.
Zen, I'm gonna impose Zen
Bats.
for a moment.
Ten bats.
Someone is at my front door. I have to go answer it. Pac-Man, what were you gonna say? I'll be right back.
Well, I was just going to say, Senna's been modding Skyrim while talking about Dengus, so she's going to build an internment camp for the Dark Elves, and they're going to pay for it.
I would never build an internment camp in Skyrim. Fuck you.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Skyrim belongs to the
isn't
Nords.
it?
No. Please, no.
Critical
Like-
support for the Empire?
That's the thing. With Skyrim, why the fuck didn't they just go down the New Vegas route and have,
Because Todd Howard.
Todd Howard can suck my testicles.
New Vegas wasn't written by Bethesda. It was written by fucking.
Yeah, it was Obsidian.
Oh,
wasn't it?
Obsidian, yeah, I know.
I'm
just
gonna
saying
stand Outer Worlds right now.
So, I figured I better go answer the front door because just as I said, come to my house and fight me, the doorbell rang.
Did you shove your luchador mask on for added intimidation?
I like how you assume I ever take it off.
Not even to go for a shower.
Well, obviously, it's.
It must really.
TK, I have to ask TK. Is it really a mask?
Nobody cared who he was till he put
So
on
I
the
think
mask.
it might be time to move on.
All right, what's the last topic we had?
Well, we're gonna move on and just have a bit of a fun last topic. Laughing at the the small riot that happened outside of I think it was a courtroom. Just before moving on, just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, you'll get your name just down in the bottom left corner. Here's an example. There it is. Nice spinning GIF.
Comrade Steve is a cunt. Sorry.
Yeah. And yes, don't forget to like as well, because that ratio of many likes to no dislikes actually helps us to get Eastern Marshlands content out there. So yeah, if you like it, please press the like button. So
Share it with your friends.
Dengus,
And,
log off.
Make your
you know,
grandma
you can
watch us. That'll go well.
Yeah, you can send it to your friends and say, dude, look at these fucking idiots.
Speaking of fucking idiots, Tommy Robinson was found guilty, I believe, of contempt of court.
Contempt of court.
Contempt of court, and sentenced
Oh,
to 9
boy.
months in jail. And then hundreds rioted outside of the London courthouse over his jailing.
Yeah, I would like to start off on talking about this topic by giving a little backstory to our dear viewers. Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon,
Also known as Papa Smurf.
and basically he is a far-right opportunist hack, and he originally started the English Defence League in, I believe it was 2009, and since then he's kind of bounced from thing to thing. At his peak, at the English Defence League's peak, they were able to amass about 1,000 people to riot through streets, allegedly against Islamic extremism. But the context for this
brown people.
the context for this case was the reason why he has been found guilty of contempt of court is that while working, I don't think he was working for Rebel Media at the time. He was doing his own little news show shit, and
Who's
he
breathing
basically.
really hard into the mic?
What's that?
Sorry.
Someone's breathing really hard into the mic. Like, I understand this is really, really hard to listen to, and it's hard to keep it contained. But like,
Is it me?
come on,
or me?
try.
Handbats.
But yeah,
Shaggy, I'm sorry.
but yeah, the whole reason he's been found guilty of contempt of court is that he went to a courthouse where the ringleaders behind a child sex grooming ring in Rotherham were being sentenced, and some of the defendants, i.e. the girls, were shown on the camera. Now, this, like, there was a blanket ban on talking about this case to protect the victims, because again, they're only young girls. Tommy Robinson took this as an opportunity to try and show off everybody's faces to the fucking world. He got arrested for essentially breaching that media blackout, because you can understand it's about child sex grooming. It's highly sensitive. And the trial is still ongoing. You don't want them getting let off scot-free. Now, basically, he's been found guilty of contempt of court because of that. And his supporters are saying, oh, he was just doing journalism. He was exposing the people who were behind it. When in reality, he was putting the victims at risk. And he also risked, like, because he did that, there was a chance that the people who committed these fucking god-awful, just horrific fucking crimes could have gotten off with it.
Yeah,
And
what is it? Muddying the waters of the case, or is
yeah,
you can throw the case out if you feel that the jury has been swayed by public opinion. So
exactly.
you have to keep the trial confidential and only act on the evidence, because if it becomes a mob case, there is a risk that it could become like a public lynching, if you like. And so there are protection laws in place to prevent that. So
yeah,
if they expose them and expose the perpetrators' identities, and then they go out and say, hey, this case is happening, and these are the people, and this is the evidence, look at how bad they are. And so the jury can feel intimidated by public pressure to pass a guilty verdict.
and it's those
Yeah.
laws that Tommy Robinson has broken.
Yes.
and now he has been jailed for. Well, the original sentence was 9 months, but it has been reduced to 2 months.
Fuck that.
And here's the thing. Even Tommy Robinson was saying, "Oh, even 2 months in prison, that's a death sentence for me." It's just like, I wish it was. I wish it was, because that man is an evil, fucking manipulative cunt who, in my opinion, and again, Eastern Marshlands does not advocate violence. In my opinion, if going to prison was a death sentence for him, I would not shed a single tear. As a matter of fact, I would probably have a small party and invite my friends around with a nice bottle of aged whiskey.
No,
This
It's a single malt occasion, that one.
Let's talk for a moment about what the right and like his ilk thinks journalism actually is to them, because it isn't, about bringing information out there to them. It's about attention. It's about having their balls tickled. To them, journalism isn't about what happened. It's about the journalist, praising someone. It's an attention grab. It's coming out here and going, look at me. I found this out. Shower me in praise. Tell me how great I am.
Agreed. Tommy Robinson, above all, is an egomaniac. And I think it's worth mentioning that because essentially with his media station, like his own little media channels and stuff like that, he has amassed hundreds of thousands in donations. And do you want to know what he has spent this money on?
Kebabs.
Not on lawyers, not on legal proceedings, not on doing anything to better the country, not even donating it to, charities that are designed to protect victims of sexual grooming. No. He used it to buy himself a new house and also used it to fucking go on holiday. And this is the thing. People are holding this man up as a big fucking cult of personality. And here's the thing. I actually recall a conversation that happened, or something I was reading, where basically one of the UK's neo-Nazi groups, well, former neo-Nazi groups, were saying that Tommy Robinson's previous venture, the English Defence League, were Britain's best chance of starting a race war.
Jesus.
And yeah, now here's the thing: you can bet your bottom dollar that here's the thing: the people that are supporting Tommy Robinson are your 50-year-old fucking beer swilling football hooligans who just want to fight, who don't really give a shit about the politics. They just want to go out, get pissed, get angry, and punch, I don't know, some innocent people about. But you can bet the more insidious forces of neo-Nazism and white nationalism are sitting here and they are watching this with barely contained glee because they basically view Tommy Robinson as being a means to an end, a means to getting people so riled up that they will start attacking people. And
now, which people is pretty obvious.
Yeah, leftists, leftists, Muslims, people who aren't white, basically everyone who isn't a white right winger will be a target. And even then, not even like conservative right winger, because these people believe that even the Conservative Party are fucking leftists. Like they believe that they are working hand in hand with Labour to suppress the British people.
You know, I think Pac-Man and I are sitting here just nodding in agreement when, especially with the parallels between what Tommy is doing and what pretty much every patriot is doing in Australia, which is just trying to rile up people in order to receive donations from them.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You've got two people. You've got Fraser Anning and Blair Cottrell, who have been real fucking alt-right. Well, actually, in Fraser Anning, he's just fash in general. He's just actual fash.
Yeah. You had sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you've got Blair Cottrell and Fraser Anning. Blair Cottrell is, I suppose, he's just a really buff Steven Crowder, I guess.
He's
That's
got that,
actually pretty accurate.
He's got that egomania that Crypto you were talking about, where
Yeah.
he calls himself a street politician, and he centers any action that's taken in the community around him. Where it's like instead of saying we are going on a community patrol, this is illustrative purposes, of course. Instead of saying we're going on a community patrol, he'll say I'm going on a community patrol and I'm leading these group of people that are coming with me. And that's a real tell as to what tickles their balls, as Theo said.
Absolutely.
It's an accurate statement.
Yeah.
And I think a thing that we can, I think another place that we can branch off from this is should we really be trusting the apparatuses of state to silence these people? Now, I would argue, I'm not going to complain about Tommy Robinson being locked in a cell. However, I think we should look back at the whole national action thing and how basically they were banned in December 2016, but as the brilliant workers at Hope Not Hate revealed, they were still very active. They just went underground and they had plans to rebrand, reorganize, and it worked. It worked for almost 8 or 9 months. They split off, they created different organizations, and the police literally just couldn't give a shit. They said, "Oh, we did it. We just slapped a ban on national action. They've gone underground, and they're not going to raise their heads above ground either again." The thing is, that's wrong. That pushed them over the edge and into actual terrorism, because after they were banned, they basically just started saying, "We're being treated as terrorists. We're being labeled as terrorists. How about we just become terrorists?"
Oof.
And the thing is, the UK government and the police will claim that banning these people and silencing them it's all down to us. We've stopped them. Like, they're not going to do anything anymore. No, they're just going to get worse, more fanatical, and then we're going to have even more problems on our hands. Like you
What
said,
do you
with
suggest?
I suggest that we should, like, any deplatforming needs to be done by people who are not, like, basically non-state apparatus. It needs to be it needs to be socially exclusionary to be racist, like to support people like Tommy Robinson. If you support Tommy Robinson, the ideal should be that you are disowned from your family, you are kicked out of your village, and you are made a social pariah. That is the ideal way to deal with it, not by locking up these people, because essentially what you've done is you have driven them even further and driven their supporters even further into extremism. Well, not into extremism, into being, even into, riling them up even more, as was seen outside the fucking courthouse after he was sentenced. But you've also created a martyr. You've created a martyr to the cause.
A sort of
Now,
social martyr. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way you get around that is you basically make it so the entirety of it becomes very bad to have those kind of views, socially speaking. Because if the government does something bad, people are going, well, not basically, if the government does something, people who support them are going to call it bad, and people won't be. And that's a way that people can kind of branch off and basically say, "Oh, look, the government's suppressing." It's a way that that these fucking alt-right shit-stirrers can, bring people in. It's like, "Oh, look, this guy's been persecuted for journalism for trying to expose the victims of, like, trying to expose the perpetrators of a grooming gang scandal that the government was covering up, and now the government's throwing him in prison for exposing their problems." And then all these people who are leaning towards it, "Oh, holy shit, that's wrong. I'm on his side now." It goes beyond the machinations of state, and that's the thing, is like, you should not be using them. Like, honestly, I don't care. Like, I honestly don't mind that Tommy Robinson's been thrown in prison, but at the same time, it is dangerous to just rely on the state to do everything for us, because if we do that, they're not just going to come after them, they're going to come after us.
Sorry, I kept interrupting. There's a parallel to what you were saying a little earlier on in that spiel, as it were, like a real world example of it, in that the Lads Society that's cropping up in Melbourne and Sydney and whatnot, when the state apparatus tried to do, like, ineffectually trying to stop these right-wing groups from organizing, they just went underground. They formed their own little cell communities, and I believe one of their plans is to try to buy every house on a street and make a little enclave there, and basically try to separate themselves from society. They are, without a doubt, 100% trying to not do anything that will get them raided. They're not going to try to break any laws at this point, because they know they're being watched, because there's anecdotal evidence, of course. There's people saying that they've had strange calls from concerned parties, and tinted window vehicles following them around. So they're trying to stay underground and not break any laws. And because they're not breaking any laws, the police and ASIO and the federal police aren't going to do anything. That's where the state apparatus just stops. And I think I have to agree with you entirely. The actions, if we want to take any action against them, it has to be not through the state apparatus. It has to be an anti-fascist action.
Mm-hmm. This is why the NKVD exists.
Oh,
we don't have these problems.
I mean, again.
Speak for yourself, liberal.
I mean, people like people like Tommy Robinson, they may not be the absolute worst form of fascism, but they're the one that gets the most attention. Like, for example, the National Action and the neo-Nazi groups in the UK, the really hardline ones, like the fucking. We had an Atomwaffen offshoot that started in the UK called Sonnenkrieg, and
fuck sticks, yeah.
absolute weirdos. But the thing is, they got little to zero attention. No one, no ideas resonated with them, and they were not able to stir up anything massive.
Should have read Siege.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
And there goes monetization again.
For Christ's sake, the only reason I'm on this show is for comic relief. Literally, that's the only logical purpose I serve. Come
You're
on.
also the reason we don't get YouTube money.
You, as if you would monetize like some filthy fucking sellout.
But yeah,
Jesus.
But yeah, I think I would not when it comes to I would not I mean, Tommy Robinson, he might not be the worst kind of fascist. He might not be out and out neo-Nazi, fucking read Siege, etc., etc. But he has the capacity to mobilize quite a lot of people, and he has a capacity to get people riled up. Now, I think another angle we can look at it is if they start shit. If they start shit, it also makes us look morally good if we step in and stop a few fast skulls. They started shit. They started punching people. If they start shit, fuck it. We step in, stop them, then we get seen as the good guys. I see this as an absolute win.
The media never reported that way.
You'll
Though.
get seen as the good guys as much as is possible, but keep in mind, not a lot of that is possible. Literally, it will get reported as, oh, these, militant anti-fascists, went after these respectful protesters.
Lay milkshake.
Yeah, they've tried to do everything to demonize it. I'm not saying that that's going to work in the long run. I think people will, on the large start being like,
okay,
maybe these guys are a bit biased. Maybe we should stop listening to them on this sort of shit.
A good analogy, if I may, real quick, interject.
Sure.
This happened before. Are you guys familiar with the student movement in Germany in the 1960s?
Yes, the German autumn.
Yes. It happened in Japan as well, interestingly.
Which was awesome.
But other than Japan, where the protesters literally had a formation battle with the riot police, which is hilarious and amazing, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the fact that German anti-fascists and just leftists in general realized that they can ridicule the state. A very famous example was where they planned a quote-unquote assassination of I think it was the Minister of Interior. Well, there was a huge investigation, and Secret Service and everything was called in. Then it turned out that this assassination was an elaborate plan to throw a cheesecake at him.
I mean, I like this. This is good.
And that came out to the press, and it was like, look at these clowns. They're spending our money, our tax money, on apprehending people that are throwing cakes at people. This was the anti-terror unit. And I think that's sort of a good segue to what Senna was saying. We should try to make the state look silly for trying to demonize us in such a fashion.
Yeah.
And of course we gotta keep our black bloc and everything going because necessary.
But
but
on that as well, you've got people that are masked up and ready to rumble, and the media will report it as Antifa are violent thugs ready to commit violence, and then they silly string people and throw milkshakes at people.
My battery acid milkshakes, boys.
Yeah, cement shakes.
But yeah, in the case of the US, I would straight up say we are never getting recognized as a positive force in the US. We are never going to get seen as good people. They want to kill us. The American system, the American system from its inception is anti-leftist, anti-socialist, and will do anything to stop us from organizing, as was seen with the fucking McCarthyite era. And I have a feeling that shit's going to come back. Now, I think leftists in the US, like fucking forget about respectability. The American press, regardless of whether or not it's CNN or Fox News or NBC, they hate us. They hate us. And they are always going to hate us. The American government is going to hate us all the time, regardless of whether it's Democrat or Republican. The only extent differs as to what extent they're going to try to stamp us out.
All I have in my mind right now is just picture this scene. It's a quiet afternoon around a public school, and suddenly these black Suburbans rock up, and all these armed men jump out, weapons drawn. You! Drop that hot fudge sundae and put your hands in the air!
I mean, that's what we're going to expropriate the hot fudge sundaes. Let's be real.
Do you have a license for that dairy confection? Answer me now. Where's your permit?
You got a license for that dairy confection?
You got a license for that?
Hello.
Yeah, yes, would you?
Oh, by the Queen, it's a milkshake.
Okay, real talk. Expropriate Dunkin' Donuts. Expropriate Krispy Kremes.
Absolutely.
Krispy Kremes for the revolution. Every revolutionary gets a box of Krispy Kremes upon joining the revolutionary forces.
I do want to point out something very important. What you see on Twitter is not, or anywhere in like visible media, is not an accurate representation of what the actual populace thinks. It's very skewed. Like, you'll see idiots on Twitter raving on about cement milkshakes and how the silly string probably blinded someone. But with a few exceptions, most people aren't going to take that seriously.
They might not take it seriously, but the thing is...
No, let me finish, please. Let me finish. It's not about respectability. It's not about who you're trying to impress. It's a part of, the general strategy. It's not about respectability. It's actually sort of about the opposite. It's about eroding trust in the competency of the system.
But
if the average person, gets the idea that this is what our defense budget is spent on, if you tell a normal person, hello, I was blinded by silly string in my eye, these people are violent and we need to lock them up, you're going to get laughed at. The thing is, obviously if you put them in a media environment, sure. But I know it's a bit...
What were you going to say, Crypto?
I was going to say, I have spoken to average American people who do not go on social media. Quite a lot of them, do not like Antifa at all. And in fact, like I've said, the entire American system is designed to, to basically raise people to hate the idea of socialism and left-wing politics from
Yes,
birth.
I'm aware. Yes.
So it goes beyond social media.
The thing is, Hunbets, people are influenced by social media.
I know. What I meant is we should still keep doing it.
Obviously, no one's saying don't do anything because people won't like us. That's
I heard
so
that
stupid.
a lot of the time. I hear that a lot of the time, where it's like, doesn't work, stop doing it. It's like...
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. The whole point is we're never going to win them. At least in the US. Like, we might as well be as big of a pain in the ass as possible. Who knows? Maybe a small handful of people will eventually like it. But...
If nothing else, it takes up resources.
In
Oh,
Australia,
yeah. Waste their
Egg Boy was
time,
a
if nothing
hero.
else.
Egg Boy was a hero in Australia. He got a lot of positive press in Australia.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's Australia. Like over in the US, like guarantee if the same thing had happened, they'd be like, "Oh, a stupid punk. Why are people like this? He should be thrown away in jail."
Like you've seen, like what was actually going on is you had when Andy and the Go actually got fucking slam dunked. You had people saying, "Oh yeah, if an Antifa guy approaches you with a milkshake, unload a magazine into his chest." They want to kill us.
Yeah.
They want to fucking kill us.
They have killed some of us before.
They've
Already.
killed some of us before. Like at the end of the day, like again, you can show the government to be completely inept all you want. But the thing is, when you have got people who are actively calling for anti-fascists to be shot at protests, where you've had plans for anti-fascist protests to be shot.
Are you familiar with the concept of formation ridiculing?
I actually kind of wasn't finished with my point.
Oh, sorry.
What happened in there was something that happened in Portland last year where I think it was either the Portland Proud Boys or fucking Patriot Prayer. They actually stationed people on rooftops in Portland with rifles. And, like, basically, if the anti-fascists decided to step in and stop these fucking right-wing knuckle-draggers from marching their way through Portland, they would be shot. This is, like... This goes beyond, like, showing the system to be inept. Leftists are being targeted in the US. They are being targeted... Exactly. They are being targeted for harassment, vandalism, assault, and murder. At the end of the day, like the whole idea of collective ridiculing, it's not going to work because if an anti-fascist tries to like ridicule the US government, they're going to get shut down and say, "Oh, you're a fucking violent left-wing extremist. You hate America, therefore your position is invalid. We love our government. We love America." It doesn't work because the whole
you have to keep doing it along other things.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like when it comes to like among other things, when it comes like it goes so deep. It's so deep. This hatred of left-wing politics in the US is so deep that it will take decades before we're able to reach the likes of being able to like collectively ridicule the government with some sympathy. And I mean, when I say decades, I mean like, decades in terms of like how far things have accelerated.
We need to wait for, I mean, I know it's a cliche, but we need to wait until the boomers and pretty much even Gen X, we need to wait till they're sort of, it's only gonna start kicking in when those people are gone.
Your armchair is showing, Pac-Man.
Well, no, I'm not saying, I'm not saying do nothing. No, kill. If you are a leftist in America,
kill.
If you're a leftist in America and you are not armed, I question your validity, quite frankly. But if you have the ability, I will state if you have the ability.
Yeah.
The moral obligation.
Marshland does not support violence.
The EML does not support
Formation ridiculing is not what it sounds like. It's a bad translation. I think it's more like basically you organize the. It's a thing that we did in Vienna in like when there was several neo-Nazi rallies. Please let me finish.
Right.
You organize your blocks in like squads. You prepare like specific different plannings for things like how the road is like blocked off for like so that when there's an organized rally so they can march through. What we did is we pushed a car, or actually several cars, onto the onto the road and basically just made it impossible for the rally to pass, not just as human things, but in this sort of, whenever the police tried to disperse us, we always reorganized in these squads. You have your people that you reorganize, and it sort of creates this flexible formation. That's, the police can't really break you, because as soon as you disperse, you can reorganize, and the purpose is to, well, really just obstruct the fucking process. Push cars onto roads, things like that. One thing they did was sabotage like a fire alarm in like 2 buildings, and sabotage. They pressed the fire alarm in 2 buildings, and it went off, and it was really painful to stand in between those buildings. But that's where they had stopped the rally.
Well, this is the thing. I haven't seen any actions in the US or Australia. Actually, that's not true. The only time a rally like that has reached critical mass in the United States was on the day of Trump's inauguration. Really, that
Like
was
where you had like.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think the block numbered like thousands strong. I think.
Damn. Son.
And yeah, I remember
trashed them.
I remember like being called through to the fucking living room of my house to watch the shit that was going on in the telly, and I was like, yes, this is the taste of things to come.
Basically, what I'm saying is, do guerrilla warfare in rioting.
Okay, the thing in
EMLs
Hong
are
Kong,
advocate violence.
the largest was 1/4 of the population. So
That's the sort of
around
density
2 million.
we're gonna need that sort of density to make any like the problem with these actions is they're small scale. The majority of America just
That's exactly what I'm talking about, because like we're thinking of riots and all that stuff as we think of as pitched battles, confrontations between the police and protesters, because you can't do that. You gotta be flexible, rely on your environment, and stuff like that. And it's 8 people trying to go up against the police are gonna lose, sure, but 8 people pushing a car into the way of a rally, or setting up. Oh, what was it? What was that they did in Linz? It was a shaving cream IED, and
I mean,
it had, I think, 50 cans of shaving cream that went up and
that does sound
covered
good.
an entire block of of street just in white. Looked like when
Yeah.
Senna had a field day, but
Hey,
I mean, that does sound good. That does sound
You're
good. But the thing is, in the US, if you tried pulling the whole shaving foam bomb, you would immediately get accused of inconveniencing other people, and even then, that's implying you'd be able to get an IED in there in the first place, because American
those things are
protests
really easy to build.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of American riot cops, to my knowledge, are armed with rifles.
yes.
Yeah, which
If
makes
you
that
did
kind
shit
of
like that over here, there's a very good chance they would just fire on.
yeah, they would just shoot you.
It's even
That's the
harder
thing.
in Australia.
That's the thing in those small formations. Like, they planted their shit and ran for the hills.
Yeah,
They have nothing to
Yeah,
shoot
the
on it.
cops are able to shoot moving targets, honey.
Remember that the U.S. government is not afraid to kill protesters.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
we have our own thing didn't happen in like strikes in the early 1900s.
Oh yeah.
I
Isn't
mean,
that
even
Maytor?
more
What was it?
recently, the
They
anti-war
dropped
protests in
bombs on a protest.
And no matter how much the no matter how much the indoctrination, how deep the indoctrination goes, the second someone shoots at an unarmed person, someone's gonna get mad at that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing,
but-
they're going to try their best to spin it as, oh, well, they were armed protesters, they were dangerous, they were setting off bombs.
Yes, and
Yeah,
a lot of people are gonna fall for that.
Yeah, and
But
I
a lot
point
of
to
people
the
are gonna see a armed man firing at an unarmed person.
as I point to the examples of Freddie Gray and like the Baltimore riots, the Ferguson uprising. Sure, they got a lot of riots, but at the same time, you had quite a lot of Americans who are calling for the National Guard to be sent in to slaughter them.
Yeah,
Despite
well,
the fact there was unarmed people being A, shot, and B, strangled to death.
You gotta understand that it's more important that I be able to go get my Big Mac at 3 in the morning, and I don't want these protesters getting in the way. That's why we gotta have the
I
National
think
Guard.
that what you're looking for is black people, but
Get the monster truck. We're going to Burger King.
We're all going
let's be real here. No one would have. Let's be real here. No one would have thrown a fuss if it wasn't black people protesting.
It's true. It's true. Like this is the thing. There are calls for Antifa to be labeled as a terrorist group, but the KKK can still freely organize.
Yeah.
They do.
I love the fact that the US is like Americans are just collectively trying to forget the fact that the KKK is still a thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, yes, like I mean, I know it's a bit of a reach here, but forgive my liberalism here for a minute, but we're gonna make Antifa a terrorist group, right? So every single American Legion member over the age of 80 is just gonna get rounded up. You fought against the Nazis in World War II. I'm sorry, my friend, but you're a member of Antifa. You're going to jail. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just, you're guilty of violence. You're using violence to push a political agenda.
The thing is, again, the whole thing I said with the whole Tommy Robinson, being arrested and pushing his fans over the edge, that works both ways. Let's just say that communism and anarchism and just Antifa in general was criminalized in the US. All that would do is drive it underground and into more militant tactics.
Which,
for
I would
example,
honestly argue might be a good thing for
exactly. For example,
US
targeted
leftist movements.
Agreed. For example, targeted assassinations, bombings.
EML does not condone violence.
Exactly.
violence.
We do not condone violence whatsoever. But I'm just saying that could happen if Antifa is listed. Well, if leftists.
It could happen. It could happen where you make your own napalm by putting styrofoam in diesel and then putting the pudgy mass in the wheels of ice vans. Like, it'd be a tragedy if that happened. Don't do it. It's
roasty toasty. Anyone want s'mores?
Spicy
God.
s'mores.
This is something in the fucking I forget where this was. Like, might have been Turkey, the PKK, where they replaced a barrel in a fuel shipment. They replaced the gasoline with napalm. Oh boy, did the Turkish military have a surprise when they tried to refuel their trucks.
Jesus Christ.
God.
Alright,
Yeah.
I think before we actually
blew up.
get that strike against the EML account, maybe this is a good point for us to wrap up.
Yes, it might be.
Alright.
Okay.
I just want to jump in with the last plug for myself. I'm gonna be in Melbourne on the 27th of this month, most likely in the afternoon. Hopefully, I'll be at Southern Cross Station next to the churro stand. So if any comrades wants to come by and we can meet in IRL and have a chat, come by. It'd be great to actually meet you all face to face. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Anybody else want some last words before we go?
I would like to plug my own shit for a second. I am going to be uploading pretty much my first official video. I am going to be reading the entirety of Nestor Makhno's The Struggle Against the State and Other Essays. I will be recording that over the course of the next week, and I should hopefully be, if all goes good, and work permitting, I should be uploading it probably next Sunday. Not this Sunday coming, the Sunday after that. So keep an eye out for that. If it's uploaded by the next installment of EML, I shall plug it in the comments.
Awesome. Where could we subscribe to see this, or are you going to post it on Twitter? And if so, what's your Twitter handle and whatnot?
I will
think his
post.
Twitter handle is on stream, but
Yeah, I will post my. I will post it. I'll post the link to my channel next Saturday. But for those of you who want to check out my Twitter, where I upload propaganda and shit posts, chat shit, start firestorms. Jeremy Corbyn's a cunt. You can follow me on Twitter at AnGailDo, which is Ann, A-N, Gail, Gaidheal, Do, D-U-B-H. And yeah, stay tuned for some of that Gallic platformism, my guys.
All right.
I have a Twitter account as well. At Senna-san with like 2 N's for each thing because the other thing was taken because someone's a dick. I need more Twitter followers because I'm just like hemorrhaging them for some reason.
It's a
Probably said
conspiracy.
thing. I'm not actually a terrible person. I mean, I kind of am, but like
shush.
not like terrible, you know. There's worse than me out there somehow. But
Hi.
yeah, I post pictures of my cat and stupid shit posts, and sometimes I get angry and talk about something serious.
I'm Theo. I'd like to do live streams, but I need to wait until I have an actual computer because this is a potato.
Pac-Man, I think you had something.
Everybody always gets plugged at the end of the video, including me. I plug every time. Subscribe to my channel, Poseidon's Pac-Man, for more anime communism. And of course, now I have officially federated with my comrades over at Shonen Ronin. If you haven't seen their channel and you're a weeb, I highly suggest you do. They're fantastic. Also, in a final note, EML does not support violence. You simply have to fire a small piece of uranium-238 into a slightly larger piece of uranium-238, and you will have a very fun time and fun for the whole family. Okay.
Yeah, fireworks display.
All right,
Polonium
I've got 2 things to plug. So
There's no graphite on
my
the ground.
Instagram is hammers.n, the letter N, dot Hose, as in Hoes. It's based on a book about the Alabama Communist Party in the 19. Also read that book. The other thing that's coming around is a thing I'm doing with some people. File is a material necessity, which will be where we will be cataloging our pieces and analyses. It is not currently out, but it will be soon.
Excellent.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that's a good point to end on. I want to thank Pac-Man, DipDap, Senna, Crypto, and Theo for coming on. I want to thank everybody in the chat for piping in with their questions, and don't forget to like and subscribe and to share on Facebook and Twitter and Discord and so on and so forth. And speaking of Discord, you can join us on Discord. There should be a workable link in the description. I'll try to make sure that it's there. And join us next time for Evening with Comrades in 1 week's time, I think. Yes. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
Accelerate the dialectic.
Eicheva.